Hey guys, my name is Joe. I'm a critical care medicine physician, and this particular video is for my NP colleagues and friends who wish to become a nurse practitioner working in the intensive care unit with me, hanging out with me, having a great time with me. If you learn absolutely anything in this video, click like on my YouTube channel, subscribe if you haven't already, and let's just go ahead and get started because this is going to be a fun video. I've been looking forward to making this for a while now. I know I made a version of it for PA students and people who wanted to be PAs, but now it's time to give my nurse practitioner friends some love. So let's go ahead and get started. The caveat and the disclaimer I have to this is that different states have different laws and requirements with regards to becoming an NP who works in the intensive care unit. I do not know, 50 states, 50 different types of laws and regulations. I do not know these, so that's your responsibility that you kind of need to sort this out. And the other thing is that there are different types of NP programs, whether they're like family-based or whether they're acute care. I really don't know what all this terminology means. That's something that you need to look up, and possibly there's some other videos out there that could help you out with that. And whatever, those are just the caveats to this talk. Now, if you think you want to be a nurse and you think that the end point is to go ahead and be a critical care nurse practitioner, you need to know the nuances of the job. You need to be aware that this isn't a 9-to-5 job. Being a nurse practitioner in many cases isn't, but more so in the critical care world, because critical care is a 24-hour a day, 7-day-a-week type of gig. So you're just not going to see a 9-to-5 gig there. You may need to do pulmonary clinic or some sort of clinic, obviously pulmonary, or maybe even sleep for that matter. But you may have to do some sort of clinic too, not just the sexy critical care stuff. Keep that in mind as well when you're actually looking for a job. Be very aware that patients are going to die on you. If you are not cool with this, you're not cool with being a critical care nurse practitioner. You also will make a lot of mistakes, and those mistakes will, be reflected in patients' outcomes and things like that, but that's just part of the game. We're humans, we make mistakes every day. That's just part of the game. And you also have a lot of responsibility as a critical care nurse practitioner. Now, if you are a nursing student and you're finishing up your training, first of all, congratulations for finishing up nursing school. That's just amazing that, you're able to do that, and we desperately need you. If you, we definitely need you in the ICU. ICU nursing is a huge turnover industry. Why? Because a lot of ICU nurses, you guys are the badasses. Not to say that, non-ICU nurses are not badasses. I don't want to disrespect anybody. But a lot of ICU nurses, step up their level quite a bit during the years that they work with, ICU doctors such as myself taking care of those patients. And you eventually move on to either anesthesia school or into NP school. But that's a different story. Excuse me, I have to scratch my nose. If you're a nursing student and you want to go into doing critical care nurse practitioner work, the first thing you need to do is get into an ICU as a critical care nurse. And, this might not be very easy because a lot of big, sexy hospitals don't get new grads as critical care nurses, but there are some less sexy hospitals that will hire you as a critical care nurse right off the bat, right out of nursing school. You may need to work here for a little while to kind of build up your experience, build up your knowledge base, so that one day you could eventually become a critical care nurse at a bigger institution, which does hire nurse practitioners. This is just a stepping stone. This is part of the process. And once again, don't shoot the messenger here. I'm just telling you kind of the truth behind all this. So you may need to go to a small hospital, get a couple of years of experience as a bedside critical care nurse, then transfer over to a facility that has nurse practitioners working in it, critical care nurse practitioners, because that's going to give you kind of an advantage with regards to getting hired later on once you finish your NP schooling. Okay, but if, let's say, for example, you are a bedside nurse, excuse me, if you are a bedside nurse who wants to go into NP school, you need to come to terms and kind of realize, do you want to give up those 3-day work weeks? Do you want to give up, working 3 days a week? Because chances are, as a critical care NP, you are going to have to work far more than just those 3 days a week. That's just how it is. A lot of times the earning jump, from your base salary as a critical care nurse, picking up 1 overtime shift a week or so, is that really going to bump up your salary by becoming a critical care NP sufficient that it's worth the cost of transitioning from a bedside nurse to a critical care nurse? I know it's a little bit of a rambling there, but I hope that made sense. It might not be as big a jump for the responsibility from a salary, from a financial standpoint, when you kind of do the cost of how much NP school is, because it's expensive, and I don't have the details behind that, but anyway, just keep that in mind. Also, that the job is not going to be 9 to 5. If you work as a critical care nurse practitioner, you will have to work weekends. You may have to work nights at the institution where you choose. That's just the way it is. I have a good friend. I don't know if she watches my YouTube channel, but she was a phenomenal bedside nurse. And when she transitioned into being a critical care nurse practitioner, it was very interesting for her because she all of a sudden had a lot of responsibility, which is very easy as a critical care nurse to say, oh, just can you order me this and can you order me that? And, not have any real responsibility when you make those recommendations to, or, ask those questions to the physicians, to then being the person who actually gives the order, because you have to. Every single order comes with its risks and its benefits. So that was something very interesting that she provided me some insight on. The other thing is that if you are a bedside critical care nurse working at one institution and you complete your nurse practitioner school, and then carry on to being a nurse practitioner in that same unit, you will have to give orders to your friends and your colleagues and even people who you didn't like before, who you worked with. And that's always very entertaining to hear the perspective on that from people who I work with, because it makes you feel kind of uncomfortable that all of a sudden you are in this position of power. And when I say power, I mean, higher responsibility. Now, when you're in actual nursing school, nurse practitioner school, you are going to be having a bunch of different rotations, whether it be nephrology, cardiology, OBGYN, whatever the program actually provides you. You need to kick ass in every single one of those rotations, okay? You really, really do. Because when you are in the ICU, you do notice that you take care of absolutely everything. I take care of OBGYN patients, neuro patients, cardiac patients, nephrology. I take care of everybody who's critically ill. And, that's one of the benefits of you as a person who's in NP school or want to be in NP school. You already know what's the patient population that you may end up taking care of. So you'll know the importance of not blowing off any particular rotations. Now, if you go ahead and you get your CCRN, this is going to be you're a bedside nurse, this is going to be a huge advantage for you, because the CCRN exam is, and I know this because my wife is a CCRN and I saw what she was studying for, and I was kind of like mind blown, because it was a really good program to understand far deeper. I can't speak today. Understand medicine in a far more complicated manner than, just titrating like Levophed drips and all that stuff. One of the things that you need to consider if you want to become a critical care RN is that you may have to do some outpatient clinic work, or you might have to do some inpatient pulmonary work. And what I mean by that is, you may have to see patients who have pulmonary nodules, lung cancer, patients with cough, and work these patients up. It might be something that's a little bit out of your wheelhouse, and you may not just be doing like the sexy critical care stuff. You may have to do some of this other work, depending on the practice with whom you sign with. Now, you are in NP school right now, and you're trying to get a job with my practice. And let's say I already know you from being my bedside nurse, and we've worked together for years now. We get along just great, but that's not necessarily going to give me the confidence that you're going to be a good clinician. So when you're in nurse practitioner school, you need to go above and beyond just to impress me and just to impress the people who you want to work with. I mean, that's just the name of the game. How you move up in this world is by having due diligence, being present, working hard, staying extra hours, kicking butt, showing that you're motivated. I mean, all these things are things that you need to do well, because you may be a phenomenal bedside nurse, taking care of patients, doing your due diligence, being on top of the patient, being great with families, but you need to show me that you are also a good clinician, that your thought process is astute, like you're on top of your game, you know the data, you know why we do certain things. These things are important, and that's usually going the extra mile, and it makes it very easy. I mean, I don't know if this particular young man is going to watch this video, but we just recently hired a guy who was a bedside nurse, and it was super easy to hire him because he was just great. He is just great, and I give him a hard time. Hey bud, if you're watching this. Anyway, yeah, you also have to realize that all the procedures and all the crazy cool stuff happens a lot of times after hours, not during the NP school rotation time. So you may have to do some overnights. It's just part of the game. That's how you get your procedures in. I know it's very easy. Well, I won't say that because I'm not good at putting in peripheral IVs unless it's with an ultrasound. But it may seem easy to put in peripheral IVs for a lot of nurses because you've been doing that for years. But putting in IJs is a whole different game. If you go into individual practice, sign with a group or whatnot, and you've done 3 IJs and then you have to just do one in the middle of the night, you need a little bit more experience. And how do you get that experience is by staying and getting more time in the ICU, leading to more procedures. Now, when it comes to getting a job, this part's a little bit tricky because a lot of people decide to go to NP school, become a critical care nurse practitioner with the intentions of staying in the same hospital. And that's a huge advantage. But to those people who don't necessarily want to stay in the same area, you got to choose a city. And if you are looking at a city, you got to basically check all the different hospitals and see who even hires critical care nurse practitioners, because that's something that many facilities just don't have, or they might just have one. That's just a completely independent variable. You need to figure out what type of ICU you want to work in. Some places have just like neuro-based nurse practitioners. Some are just cardiothoracic nurse practitioners. It's cardiothoracic ICU. Some are med-surg. There's a lot of variability where you could get jobs, and you got to see if the city where you want to work in has hospitals that offer those particular jobs, because sometimes you just might not see that. You might not have a small town hospital that has a dedicated neuro ICU nurse practitioner. It just may not exist. So you really need to do your homework so that you don't get into the job market and then become very disappointed. That's just how it is. You are going to have to figure out if you're going to work nights or not. Some NP jobs may not allow or may not accommodate or may not need night shift coverage, but a lot of them will. And if you're not willing to work nights, you need to know this right off the bat. Also, you need to be competent with procedures. If you can't intubate somebody, if you don't know your difficult airway algorithm, you're going to be you're going to be limited. Let's just leave it that way. If you are a bedside nurse, and let's say you want to become a nurse practitioner in the critical care field, and your particular hospital doesn't have a critical care nurse practitioner working with the group, I suggest you move hospitals. I hate to say it that way, but you kind of need to get a little bit of exposure as to what the job is. I know that this is all a lot of legwork, but it's just what it takes to get the job and to get into a good program and to eventually be happy, because that's what we all want. We all want to be happy. We all want to be satisfied. We all want to have a fulfilling career. That's just that. And then once ultimately you have that job, hey, congratulations, you're a critical care nurse practitioner. I hope that your hopes and dreams have, fulfilled you, so to speak. You'll realize that once you start hitting the ground, you're not going to necessarily hit the ground running. You're going to struggle a little bit. You're going to be going through some muddy waters. And I say this because it happens to everybody. And don't lose your motivation if you struggle a little bit, because everybody struggles. I know that when I was a medical student and I transitioned to residency, I struggled a little bit. I struggled quite a bit. And then when I moved from residency to fellowship, I struggled a little bit with that at first. And hopefully your training allows you to, just struggle for a little bit of time and not a lot of period of time. I know I didn't say that correctly, but it doesn't allow you to struggle for a long period of time. And if you do struggle for a long period of time, you kind of have to look at yourself and figure out if you're really cut for the job, because the job is really tough and it's not meant for everybody. Ultimately, I hope that this video helps you, and I hope that my rambling is worth something to you. And if so, if you learned something, if you liked what I said, give me a like, leave me some comments below, subscribe, go on the YouTubes and Instagrams and follow me there. And that's basically it for this video. Have a great day. Bye.